Connor O'Gara is the national senior columnist at Saturday Down South. Joins us every other Monday on the Lewis Automotive Group hotline. Connor, how you doing today?
Doing well. First time in, 11 years that we're talking about an SEC basketball team playing in the national championship. Before we ever played a college football playoff game, that's what we're talking about. That's the last time an SEC team played in the final game of the NCAA tournament. But here we are, and it's going to be a darn good one tonight.
Well, and the SEC team's favored by 1.5 on the Bet Saracen app. I really wouldn't know which way to go with this here, but it is two teams of differing styles. One on an offensive juggernaut, the other a great defensive team that just seems to out-hustle a lot of other clubs. How do you break this one down?
Nobody cares about my bracket, but in my bracket I did have this championship game with Florida beating Houston. And I think everybody's going to look at what Houston did the other night to Duke and just say, well, they're unbeatable. If you can have that type of resilience down the stretch, and if you can do the things that they did defensively, then that's our national champ. And it's not going to be surprising if that plays out. But I think Florida, with the experience that it has, the age that it has, is a much different matchup to close out a game than Duke was. And one of the things that truly stands out with this Florida team is how they just do not blink in these moments. That run that they went on to start the second half against Auburn was everything that we've been talking about for Florida for the last 2 months, really dating back to that regular season game against Auburn. And so there's a scenario tonight in which it could feel like, man, Houston's up 25-16. Look at all of these shot makers that Kelvin Sampson actually has on his team. Cryer looks like he's having one of those types of games. And then you're going to blink, and Florida's going to be back within it. And all of a sudden, Walter Clayton Jr. is making these clutch shots. And you're left wondering, well, what exactly did we just what did we just witness in terms of a level of greatness? I think Florida is capable of repeating that success, and I think that's ultimately what's going to happen tonight.
Houston kind of struggled early against Duke, and I guess Duke can do that to anybody, but they were able to bounce back. Which one of these two teams, as far as Florida or Houston, because I think it's going to come down to the last 5 minutes. Houston's not going to blow anybody out. Florida can go on a 10-0 run at any time. So I think it'd be real similar to the Final Four, how it'd come down to the last 2-3 minutes. But which one of these teams do you think had the harder time winning last night? And we know college kids, one thing they aren't is being consistent a lot of times. And do you think one of these teams could have a letdown tonight?
It's possible. I mean, I don't think we're going to get a dud. I just can't imagine a scenario in which we get a dud. That would be the most surprising result. And, really Florida's been this team that you can watch in the first half and go, oh, they just don't have it tonight. They're turning the ball over. They look so sloppy. What is this number one seed that we've been hearing about that's so battle-tested? And, man, are they going to really play in a game in which they're trailing the entire time? But you just can't count them out. And to me, it's the same story with Houston. I mean, to overcome that lead down the stretch, I don't know if I've watched a game like that where at the 5-minute mark with 5 minutes left, I was so surprised, wherein, the final result surprised me that much. It was inevitable that Duke was winning that game. I mean, the block that Cooper Flagg has down the stretch and how hard Houston worked to be able to still just come back in every phase of the game. To me, I don't think a dud is in store for any of them. I think these teams are so battle-tested and know what it takes to close out a game. So I just don't think that we're going to get a scenario in which we look back on what these teams did on Saturday and say, oh, well, that's clearly impacting their performance tonight.
Will Walter Clayton, the guard for Florida, Connor, will he be the best player on the floor tonight?
I think so. I wrote something for Saturday Down South this morning about why I think this is already one-upped the Kemba Walker run in 2011. And, not that I have a lot of UConn fans in my mentions. One of my good friends is actually a UConn grad, but that's a different story for a different time. There are really difficult comps to make in college sports. And one of the ones I'll never make is I'm not going to compare anybody to Cam Newton. And it's almost in that regard what Kemba Walker did in the NCAA tournament in 2011, the same school year that Cam Newton did what he did at Auburn. And people have been so hesitant to compare anyone to it because we remember what it was like, the shot making, the fact that he went through the Big East that year. And the reality is you're not going to compare someone to that unless they go on a generational run. Well, Walter Clayton Jr. is on a generational run, and the stat about him being the first player since Larry Bird to have 30-point games consecutively in the Elite Eight or later is just absurd. I mean, it doesn't even really scratch the surface of how good he's been if you just look at that number. So, to me, he is the best player on the floor. If there's anybody that's going to make a big-time shot tonight, it's going to be him. And I just feel like you're going to have to do everything and then some to get that guy off of his game and to make him somewhat phased down the stretch.
I was trying to think of a school that's moved from one conference to the other and actually upped their game in a way that Houston basketball did, but I was trying to think about a football aspect of it. Who would be a school that has moved up in
SMU, maybe?
Yeah, I mean, that would be about right. That's the only, I thought maybe Oregon, but I mean, they were moving from a power league to a power league and still stayed at a really high level. But SMU, I think that's the right answer, Matt.
Yeah, SMU is definitely would be the prime example of that, in a current context. I think 2012 Texas A&M with Johnny Manziel going into the SEC, that was something that everybody was totally thrown off by. I mean, it was supposed to be a team that was going to fade into the middle or even the back half of the SEC in what was expected to be a really strong year in the conference. And they ended up having their best finish in the AP poll since 1939 that year, obviously with the Heisman Trophy winner. And A&M was on the map off and running year one in the SEC. So you're right, though. It is extremely rare, and it speaks to just how good Kelvin Sampson is, which I know as Indiana guys that pains us to be able to say. But man, I mean, how could you not just applaud what his team, his culture has looked like in the NCAA tournament, not just this year, but really in the 2020s as a whole. So, yeah, their ability to step into a very respected basketball conference that is the Big 12 and look this good from wire to wire, it's nothing short of remarkable.
Hey, Connor, I'm looking at this NFL draft stuff, and who is the first SEC player that you – I mean, the top 5 players they have are not SEC guys. Then you kind of get a couple SEC guys. Who will be the first SEC player taken in any way? I don't think there's any way possible Travis Hunter falls below the New York Giants picking at number 3. Any way Travis Hunter falls out of the top 3?
It's possible. I mean, it's possible he ends up going 4 to the Patriots or something like that. I think everybody would roll their eyes collectively if that were the case. But, no, I would agree. I would say that's probably the most likely scenario. Maybe the Giants trade out of the pick or something like that. Someone moves up to get Shedeur. I could definitely see something like that playing out. But, it's going to be interesting because for a while, I thought the pretty obvious answer to that question was, well, it's going to be Will Campbell. And then we get into the pre-draft process. We start talking about arm length and all that other useless garbage. And all of a sudden people are like, well, no, he's not going to go in the top 10. And I think that question is truly wide open. I mean, Andrew Membu, the tackle from Mizzou, who's, maybe he's going to play guard at the next level. He's going to be a candidate that could be going off the board first among SEC players, which is kind of crazy to think about. I think there's definitely a market for a guy like Jalen Walker who could step in. And, we all saw what the Georgia edge rusher did in that Texas game, especially both times, really. And I don't think anybody would be surprised to see a player in that spot come off the board early. But it does feel really wide open. It is particularly wide open because there's not that elite SEC quarterback in this class in the way that there was last year with Jaden Daniels. So, yeah, I mean, I think that question going down to the wire is going to be one that we don't really feel like we have a good grip on.
We'll get more into the draft with you in a couple of weeks when we have you again, because that'll be just a couple of days, I think, before it starts. But today's a huge day in college sports, Connor, not because of the college basketball championship. That's one thing. But this settlement, the House settlement, supposed to be approved today in Oakland, California by Judge Claudia Wilkin. I mean, we're all assuming that she approves this, but I know she's also said she's not ruling immediately from the bench. She's letting other parties state their case, which also includes some athletes who do not approve of the settlement themselves. But there's no way this doesn't get settled, because if it's not approved, college sports is kind of crap out of luck.
I would agree with that. I mean, it seems like such a foregone conclusion. We've all been assuming, okay, this is going to be the landmark event that's going to then set the stage for, the revenue sharing era, and we're going to get this new era in which we're talking about, the $20 million that's distributed across college programs, not just within one sport, and we'll be kind of off and running. And, this is going to be the thing that kind of makes it right. And that's what everybody's been arguing about for years is, well, it's not right that if you played in a specific era, you won't reap the benefits when we see the financial reward that they were able to get as a result of that. So, yeah, I mean, look, they might drag this out a little bit, but I'll be stunned if we don't get a very near ruling on what this House settlement is going to look like and how it breaks down for all these former athletes.
BetOnline continues to be the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for online betting. From the earliest odds to in-game live betting, BetOnline provides you with all the action and the ability to watch the games as they happen. With the largest selection of odds on everything from football, the NBA, and college basketball to NHL and UFC, head to BetOnline today and don't forget to use the promo code BELIEVE for your welcome bonus on your first deposit. BetOnline, the game starts here.